Alright. So welcome to part 2 of creating a hidden castle with Blender 2.8. We are going to continue from where we left off. Yeah, let's continue. This is where we left off. Alright, cool. So we are going to make some changes to the sun to get the effects we want. So I was trying to get the shadows right on the clouds and also at the side of the castle. So still working on the angle of the sun. Alright, so we are going to create the first shader or material for this scene. So we are going to create one for the rock. So we are going to first add a noise texture. I don't know what's happening or what's causing this error. Alright, so I was trying to press Ctrl T but it wasn't working, so I have to do it manually. So I'm going to hide the clouds so that I get only the castle and the rock. So wait. Alright, so I just duplicated it and I'm changing the scale of the first one to maintain the second one. I'm mixing them together with so color ramp to bring back the dark. So another means node to generate two colors from the noise nodes. So now I'm going to use an image texture, then I'm going to use it with what we have generated from the noise node to get an interesting result. So if again you do follow my tutorials, I do like to add details to my textures before I even start using other materials or other information on the texture. So alright, so this is the texture we are using, and we are going to mix it with the information we have from the node setup. So one note I wish Blender guys or the developers will add it to the notes in the shader is a certain effect or a certain option in Substance Designer where you can sample. You have the option to sample colors from an image, so you just draw a line on the parts you want to sample, and that option will sample those colors for you to use it as textures. So I really hope you get that option in Blender. It will be very, very helpful. Alright, so we are using the AO node to get something extra details to mix it with the textures we are having. So again, I'm building some depth to blend with the texture we just added to the shader or to the setup. So all this has some depth. I'm going to mix it with the texture. Alright, so I'm going to mix it, use that as the factor, and then alright, so this is the results I'm getting. So I'm going to change the blend mode to see whether I end up getting something interesting. So you can see with just the node setup we just created, we are getting a rocky look with just the node setup. So adding the texture to it will even make it more interesting. So I'm now using the pointiness of the rock to get another details on the tip of the rock. and I'm going to mix that with the ambient to get extra details. So I'm just building some details on top of each detail. So when I'm done with it, I will use that and mix it with the texture we added. So you can see we have already added the texture, but we are not using it yet. So we have to get the details right before we do that. Alright, so I know you have seen a lot of if you are not a beginner, you have seen different ways of creating rocks with Blender, but I just like to do things on my own way or come up with something different. So this a star or something, a procedure I use in creating my shaders. I just build details before I start adding the textures. Alright. Alright, so now we have the texture now, and we have added the mapping node to it. So we are trying to work with the scale to get something interesting, something which will look nice for the rock. We don't want to overscale the texture because it's not similar, so it will end up looking it will end up repeating. So I've mixed it with the details we created, and this is the results we are having. So you can see we are getting a very interesting results. And by doing this too, by creating your own details, it's remove or hide some seams which we end up getting from the texture. So this too is very building your own details or your own depth, and adding it on top of your texture really helps to remove those seams. Alright, so the texture wasn't working for me, so I'm going to look for a different one now. Alright, so we are going to use this one. I hope this works for us. Alright, so I'm going to decrease the scaling because and it's looking good. Alright, so I have the link for the texture, the description, so you can go ahead and download that too. So there is a link in the description for the texture. So any image you see, any image or any texture you see, there's probably a link. There is a link in the description for you to download. You can go ahead and download the textures I'm using. Alright, so I've added the bump node, and this is the results we are getting from the bump. And we are using only the image texture to generate the bump. So I think this texture will work for us, so we'll stick with this one. Alright, so I wanted to use different settings for the bump, so I duplicated the mapping and the texture node, and I'm changing the settings, especially the scaling of it, to get more details on the rock. So let's see what the noise is giving us, and this is what the noise is giving us. Not bad. We are going to mix those two together to get a nice result. So this is what we are getting from both. So I use add for the blending mode, and this is what we are getting. Alright, so you can see with this pointiness effect or detail, we are getting a very interesting look here. So we are going to use the texture, but we are going to mix it with a color so that we don't get the exact look of the texture. And for the textures, I'm using object coordinates, not UV. Alright. Alright, so we are adding another displacement on the rock, because it looks like we are not getting much details on the surface, so we are adding another detail using the displacement modifier. So by doing that, we end up getting more details from the pointiness. So you can see we can just turn it off by just using the factor from this mix node. So it's starting to look good. It's really starting to look good. So the size we are actually looking at is the parts in the shadow. So let's rotate the sun to see how it really looks like. Alright, so now I've turned all the clouds on and it will be showing up in just a few seconds. Alright, so yeah. So let's try and preview it. Not bad, not bad. Alright, so I think I like this one. Oh, alright, so yeah, I think this one is cool. So I'm trying to make a little changes to it. Alright, so this is what we are getting so far, and the rock is looking very good. It's looking nice. I do like the results we are getting from the node setup. So still trying to get a nice arrangement of the clouds. So changing the seeds to see whether I get something I'm looking for. Alright, so I just duplicated one cloud, so now we are having 4 clouds. Alright, so this is what we are getting. Alright, so I've duplicated all the clouds and moved them to the collection which I store my objects. Alright, so we are going to add a shader for the clouds. Alright, okay, so I have to give the nose to the smaller clouds for it to take effect in the camera view. Alright, so I'm applying those materials to the smaller clouds, and now if we render we should get it to work. Alright, cool, so this is the results we are getting here. So again, this is the first trick, and this is a very low resolution cloud, and it's very useful for distance cloud. So this is the first trick, or the first method. So even if it's very good for distance clouds or distance shots, I still wanted to create something cool within a close-up shot. So we will be making a lot of changes and tweaking here for a shader which will look nice in a close-up shot. So this is what we are getting, even though we have the color set to white, but we are getting a darker view, or a darker result. So let's find a way to get rid of those dark results in. Alright, so after a lot of settings and changes, this is what I came up with, and this one is the easiest. So I just use a volume scatter shader, and then the density of 0.230. So you can copy the hex, you can type the hex code, and you'll get the exact color value I use. And I use an emission shader to get rid of the shadows, because I noticed the shadows was giving it that dark tone. So at the end, the principal volume was useless. So this is a very simple setup, and so this is how the first method is created. Alright, so we are done with the first method, so we are going to move on to the second method in the next part of the video. So in part 3 we are going to talk about the second method and how to achieve a very realistic results with the second method. So I hope you learned something in this part 2, and hopefully we are going to meet in part 3. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. Go ahead and like and leave a comment if there is any, and hopefully we'll meet in part 3. But before that, this is the tutorial I'll be uploading after this tutorial, after this hidden castle tutorial. So thanks for watching, and hopefully meet you in the next part of the tutorial. All right.